And welcome back. This is Matt Cam89 to part 3 of the Cold Open Battle Report for G.I Joe Battle of the Arctic Circle. And this is round 5 of this battle report. And at the start of round 5, this is what the global situation looks like here. And looking at both the Cobra forces and G.I. Joe, it looks like it can go either way still at this point. The G.I. Joes have definitely done a good job of capturing a lot of victory points, but we do see Cobra's forces starting to put pressure on that Greenland base. And starting the round, we have Cobra Commander, who will be starting with 19 reinforcement points and starting round 5 with 3 victory points. And he decides to purchase a cruiser and 1 aircraft. Cobra Commander decides to hit Admiral Hall's cruisers. Now, he does find success destroying the 2 cruisers, but losing a cruiser of his own, and ends up landing the 2 Rattlers on his North Pole base. For his non-combat moves, he decides to fortify one of his victory points. And at the end of Cobra Commander's turn, you can see the state of the global map here. And it is now Admiral Keelhaul's turn for round 5. And with 27 reinforcement points and 5 victory points, Admiral Keelhaul purchases 3 infantry, 1 armored vehicle, a cruiser, and 1 aircraft. Admiral Hall goes on the offensive, preemptively striking at Destro's forces that were on the doorstep of the Greenland base. The Admiral's forces were firing on all cylinders, decimating Destro's forces after 1 round of combat and easily wiping them out in round 2. The Admiral then moved its forces from its main harbor base into position to strike at that 1 victory point, where a single Cobra Commander infantry is guarding it. And at the end of the Admiral's turn, you can see some big moves by the G.I. Joes, some good gains on this turn. And going into Destro's turn for round 5, he is going to be getting 20 reinforcement points, where they currently have 5 victory points as well. He decides to get 2 Rattlers. And for his combat fave, Destro decides to test his luck, sending in a massive wave of infantry against Snowjob's naval and ground forces in an attempt to do some sort of damage here. And after combat, you can see Destro's forces were decimated by Snowjob's forces. However, Snowjob did lose his ground forces as well, his naval forces beating back the infantry attack. And for his non-combat move, Destro decided to move 2 Rattlers over to the North Pole base and has sent a massive naval fleet towards Snowjob's main harbor base in an attempt to end the game. And as you can see at the state of the global map here, Destro has put his forces in very good position to possibly win this for the Cobra forces. And next up is Snowjob, receiving 26 reinforcement points and currently holds 1 victory point. He decides to purchase 3 infantry and 2 Sky Strikers. And for Snowjob's combat phase, he decides to send 4 Strikers to hit Cobra Commander's forces over in one of the victory points that are worth 1 point. I apologize for the missing image, but there should be some Cobra forces there. At the end of this combat round, the Snowjob Sky Strikers were successful in defeating all of the Cobra Commander's forces without taking a single hit. And at the end of round 5, you can see the state of the global map during this time. You can see the G.I. Joes are in great position for a victory point victory if they can hold out, as Destro forces get very close to Snowjob's main harbor base there. Does he have enough to defend himself? And at the end of round 5, we can see G.I. Joe losses at 42 reinforcement points, however, gaining 6 victory points. Cobra losses at 58 reinforcement points, However, they currently hold 8 victory points. We'll see what happens in round 6. And back with round 6, we are opening up with Cobra Commander, 19 reinforcement points, currently holding on to 5 victory points. They decide to purchase a cruiser and a rattler. Let's see how this goes. And during his combat phase, Cobra Commander has decided to use the Weather Dominator, creating a land bridge between the North Pole and Greenland again, fortifying his position over at the Victory Point 1, but also goes on the offensive, attacking Admiral Hall's Victory Point 2, which is very crucial to G.I. Joe's being able to win this game. After combat, Cobra Commander's forces were easily able to destroy Admiral Kale Hall's forces, gaining an additional 2 victory points, a major blow to the G.I. Joe forces. They then continued to reinforce that Victory Point 1. Next up is Admiral Kale Hall with 27 reinforcement points. They purchased 2 infantry, a cruiser, and a Sky Striker. Sensing that time could possibly be running out, the Admiral goes on the full offensive, going after the 1 victory point over in Greenland, and also in an attempt to recapture the 2 victory points that it lost on the previous turn. The Admiral then pushes his forces up to try and capture an additional 1 victory point. The Admiral's forces were extremely efficient, being able to capture 4 victory points in this turn, easily taking out Cobra Commander's forces in all 3 territories. In his non combat phase, he decides to push his forces further in order to gain the victory point victory. At the end of the Admiral's turn, the G.I. Joes are in a good position to gain the victory point victory. However, they still need to hold out against Destro. Next up is Destro, who has 19 reinforcement points. They decide to purchase 2 infantry and 2 cruisers. And as expected, Destro decides to go on the offensive, sending 2 rattlers to cause a little bit of havoc over in Greenland, but moving that entire naval armada over to Snowjob's main harbor base. After a few rounds of combat, Destro forces were victorious in capturing Snowjob's harbor base and gaining the victory for the Cobra forces. And at the end of round 6, you can see it was a very close game. Could have gone either way had the G.I. Joes been able to hold off that assault at Snowjob's main harbor base. However, his defensive roles, even having a good amount of Sky Strikers there, were abysmal. And as you can see, there are a good amount of Destro forces that were left over. Unfortunately, those Sky Strikers did not do their job as intended, and Cobra forces were able to get the victory here. Had they been able to hold off, I think the GI Joes probably would have won the victory point victory, being able to easily hold 10 victory points at the end of the next round, and or having the most victory points at the end of round 7. But it was a good move by Destro to end the game, take a chance, and ended up being victorious for the Cobra forces. And at the end of round 6, you can see G.I. Joe losses. There was a lot of combat here, 70 reinforcement points. However, ending the game with 9 victory points. If they could have just hold on one more round, the G.I. Joes, I think, would have won this game. But Destro did the right thing, ended up attacking the main harbor base there, getting the victory for the Cobra forces, who ended up losing 95 reinforcement points that round, and only controlled 5 victory points at the end of that round. But victory condition states that if any of the main bases fall, it's an automatic victory. Hope to see you in the next battle report.